This case didn't feel foreign to me. In fact, this exact game was around even when I was growing up. I looked online to see, if this game was still going on, and I found so many information online that this game is still around. So my opinion is that schools should educate students early on about these games, or like continue to educate students about them. And next, in the case of chapter 5, I felt like the counselors did exactly what was needed, like very textbook. During this tragedy, they like provided emotional support, coordinated resources, and they guided staff and collaborated with families. I also thought that the counselor's decision to withhold unconfirmed details about the death was both respectful and very wise, as like false rumors could start this way. And lastly, it reminded me that the counselors also need support. The counselor from this case, she recognized that she needed support and she reached out to her fellow counselor colleagues, which I also felt was very wise and self aware.
Okay, so for our reflection, if we were faced with a similar crisis in the future, our response would focus on prevention. First, we would make sure that students learn about these dangerous games in age-appropriate ways, and then so they can understand why they're harmful instead of fun. And second, we would also train our staff to recognize warning signs, um, just like language regarding the game that's trending. Also, like in this case, maybe like marks around the neck. Um, that could be a big sign. And also, we would partner with teachers. Parents need to know the risk so that they can talk to their children at home and watch for warning signs at home because we're not with them when school ends. And in a crisis like this, the counselor's role and administrator's roles, they overlap, but they're not the same. So counselors would lead guidance lessons on risky behaviors, and we would also provide counseling, grief counseling after the crisis. And we would also be the ones to communicate with parents in our community to find them, to support them further. And then our administrator, their role would be to enforce rules and to make sure supervision is consistent. Um, they also need to manage crisis protocols, and our staff's role would be supervision also. And just the most important part is collaboration between all the adults in the school, so we're all on the same page and we're all informed. So postvention, this is what happens after a crisis had already happened. In this specific case, our crisis response team would be activated um, right away, and counselors, we would provide grief counseling for students and staff who were affected. And also, we would make sure we are doing safe memorial practices. That's pretty important because we want to avoid anything that might, unintentionally glorify the results of risky behavior. We don't want students to want to um, be on the spotlight, like see it as something good. Um, and then also, we would, counselors and staff would do, would continue ongoing student monitoring. Um, in this case, we would monitor Jamie's peers and his friends to make sure that they're not trying to imitate the choking game. So this case just reminds us that educating our students and our staff saves lives. We play a Counselors play an important role in prevention, also intervention and postvention, just so we can avoid tragedies like what happened with Jamie.
and I'll be taking over for chapter 6. And chapter 6 is the case study was a student was seen at the bus stop in the morning with a gun, and but he didn't go to school. And the student saw him did go to school. When the student arrived at school, he let the principal know, or went straight to the office and reported what he'd seen. And then the school was immediately placed on lockdown in coordination with the police department and traffic and buses and all those things, so that they were and all the pickup traffic was blocked, so that there wasn't a whole lot of unnecessary people in the area. And after talking with the witness, they suspected that the boy might be near the bus stop, to try and head off his target when he got off the bus. The police responded to the school and the bus stop. The boy was taken into custody, and the school was taken off of lockdown, and the crisis was concluded. Um, Overall, I think the response was good. Most schools are emphasizing the see something, say something. The student saw something and did have the courage to say something. The office staff communicated the urgency of the situation. The principal was headed into a meeting, and the office manager said, "No, I think you need to talk to this kid." And the principal immediately contacted the police for support. The school was placed on lockdown, and the staff were prepared for that. Once the situation was resolved, the focus turned to the cause of this boy wanting to bring the weapon to school or to the bus stop. And plans were made to reinforce bullying prevention. It was uncovered that the suspect had been previously bullied pretty seriously, and it was ramping up again, even though he had changed schools. Apparently, his bullier had also changed schools as well. And the school community was prepared for the situation. They implemented the plan effectively. And then once the crisis had passed, the school staff took the time to look at the causes and prevention of future events. The counselor surveyed and discovered what the cause was of this situation, and then upped their response to bullying prevention. And students and staff were provided with effective support through counselors being available and ways for people to share how they felt.
So, as Nancy mentioned, this was overall an effective response to the crisis. But as far as a reflection, we would do, it focuses more on the response and then the recovery phase. And so in the immediate crisis, the principal had clear lockdown protocols, and that was communicated to staff. I think that it seemed like, and just having been as a teacher in the classroom where you don't have a lot of information about a lockdown, you don't know why necessarily. And so I think he might, because it mentioned that he was like shouting, get in, get in, get in. I think there are ways to reinforce a lockdown without maybe making students feel more panicked than they need to be. And so it seemed like maybe that might have been an opportunity for the principal to reinforce it in a less like panic-inducing way. But I wasn't there. It seemed that way. But his communication with his school staff and police seemed really consistent. He knew exactly what to communicate. He was efficient with the law enforcement that responded. And they were able to immediately then find Kevin and then follow up with him. And then in the recovery and for future practice, I think that the trauma-informed care aspect of it, and they talked about the bullying prevention, but I think small group counseling. Some students may have been, and we'll get into this in the postvention, but some students may have been triggered. Some of the students may have been also affected. And so I think there's an opportunity there for small group counseling. And then also in their recovery, they mentioned, oh, we need to start this bullying prevention program. And they realized that an area of growth for the school was actually in the prevention phase and in building that school climate. And so they implemented their bullying prevention program to address those early warning signs. And so the school counselor's role, so to conduct those risk assessments and provide that psychological first aid for the students who might have been triggered by the lockdown, scared, also have had similar situations in the past, but then also risk assessments for Kevin because he had been bullied. And so we want to see, he showed up with the intent to harm someone else and to sit with Kevin and conduct that risk assessment. Like Candy mentioned, there's the overlap there. So collaborating on threat assessments where the administrator might lead the overall process. There's an opportunity for the school counselor to collaborate on that. They're definitely going to have a big role. And then to facilitate those reentry plans and ongoing mental health support. So two postventions that would be effective. Most immediately, small group support sessions. So focusing on the students most directly impacted, maybe those that witnessed the incident, maybe Kevin's friends, those are experiencing heightened fear. And this could be based on student self-referrals, parent, teacher referrals, especially in the week following the incident. And so a short series of small group support sessions, maybe starting by processing the incident and what happened, making sure that students know that it's normal to feel fear or confusion during these sorts of events. And then another session on coping skills, emotional regulation, how to manage fear and anxiety and identify personal triggers. And then moving forward into really establishing like safety and trust, restoring a sense of safety and reinforcing that importance that student reported when they saw the weapon. He reported his concern. And so that's really important, I think, to keep reinforcing that and the importance of speaking up and accessing help. And then closing with a focus on hope. So identifying support networks, looking out for one another, and just building confidence and a sense of safety in the school community. And then a second postvention in the school that did identify this as well is having an anti-bullying program. This could be a campaign. This could be, and it should actually include more than just one thing, but there could be professional development for teachers, curriculum, community outreach, but then pairing that with ongoing monitoring of at-risk students because it seems like the flags early on with Kevin were not picked up, and realizing that it can be complicated, right? In a situation where Kevin was the one that the police were looking for, but he was the aggressor and also the victim at the same time. And so these things can be complicated. There's programs out there, so we wouldn't have to build it from scratch. And so we would look into programs like that. And our references. And thank you, everybody.
Rebecca, you mentioned something about a risk assessment. What would we be, who would we be giving that to?
Kevin.
Because which risk assessment would you be giving?
I was wondering, and I was unclear about this, but I was wondering if we would give him a risk assessment if he was bullied for that long. Would there potentially be a concern that if he was willing to hurt someone else, that he might also be willing to hurt himself?
You would not do that.
But not. Okay.
No, because he isn't showing that he wants to cause harm to himself. So doing that risk assessment would not be warranted. He's causing harm to someone else, so a threat assessment would be
Yeah.
done. And the threat assessment team would come together because he actually brought the gun. So, or he had the gun. So then they would go ahead and, just making sure that it would end with this incident, and he would be, making sure that it's not that. Now, through the threat assessment, something else may come up in a risk assessment. They may be required at that moment.
So you would wait until then.
Yeah, you have to wait
Okay.
until he's actually states like, I don't want to live anymore because this guy has been bullying me for how long, you
Okay.
know, so
Oh,
that's,
thank you for
and,
clarifying.
and, and that's
In my
important
mind,
for
I
us
was
because
thinking it's been going on for so long, like if he wants to hurt someone else, what if he also wants to hurt himself? But you're saying to wait until that information
right,
surfaces.
but our questions for a risk assessment actually, you only give that once they verbally stated that they want to cause harm to themselves in some way, shape, or form.
Okay.
In some way, shape, or form. If and how long it's been going on, it's fine, but we don't use it as a ruling out measure. And
Mm.
that's what I'm saying that you're doing. You're using it as a rule out. Let's rule it out first, but let's use it. No, we don't. We are very cautious with that screener. Okay. And it's just that. It's just a screener. And it's based on the fact that we've actually heard the student mention in some way, shape, or form, paper, voice, whatever, some way, shape, or form that they want to cause harm to themselves for whatever the reason may be. And bullying is a one that comes up frequently as to why someone wants to cause harm to themselves because but he went and got a gun to defend himself. So now he's causing threat to someone else. So we needed to make sure that he won't continue that because we in this situation, the gun was taken and it was, everything was averted. But how do we know that tomorrow he won't wake up feeling the same way and then actually make it and, devise the plan better so he actually makes it on campus to cause harm to someone else, right? Okay, so that's why I just wanted to get that. We're not responsible for the threat assessments. Remember that we're a member on the threat assessment team as a counselor. We rarely are the point person. We are the point person for a risk assessment. So that's where we want to make sure that we just are there and someone else is leading the threat assessment, which is what we talked about in this course. In this course, the threat assessment and the questions that we talked about someone else is guiding them. And then they make the determination as to where, the principal, the dean, the police, all those guys come together. And then, like you said, if in that situation, the person mentions, oh yeah, I feel this way or I feel that way, because I'm being bullied and I don't want to live anymore. Now we come in and we say, okay. And so how long have you been feeling this way? Now we start our questioning for their mental health, okay, and well-being, because we don't want to ignore it and then more comes up. All right, great job, everyone. Okay. We were going 3, 2, 1, and we went 2, so we'll go back to 3. Group 3.
Okay, I'm gonna share. Just give me 1 second. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah, we can see it. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jacob, you ready?
I don't think we see the present.
You have to press
No,
present.
we don't see the present. You're frozen on the present. I thought you were going to click on present because that's where your cursor is right now. So that's why I was saying that.
Okay.
There you go. Are you on the present? Uh-oh.
No, I know. It's give me 1 second. Now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Hmm. Okay. Hello, class. My name is Jacob Barboza. Our group also includes Jane Lee, Latasha Simmons, and Vanessa Salazar, and this is our case study reflections. Overview of case number 7. The case describes a school facing a crisis during a heavy rainstorm, with the surrounding streets flooded, posing significant safety and logistical challenges. The school staff, through their quick adaptation and implementation of effective prevention and intervention strategies, successfully ensured the safety of both students and the staff while maintaining the continuity of education.
The case amplifies the critical importance of comprehensive crisis prevention and intervention planning. It highlights that even unpredictable natural events such as heavy rain and flooding can be managed successfully through proactive measures, teamwork, and effective communication. Every school should adopt such a preparedness strategies, including ongoing training drills to safeguard students and staff, demonstrating the effective crisis management. It is vital in creating a resilient educational communities. Everyone should agree that being well prepared is the cornerstone of effective crisis response.
Okay, if we were faced with a similar crisis at school, our first priority as school counselors will be to remain calm and present for students and staff. Children feed off the energy of adults around them, so our role will be to provide reassurance and consistency. Specifically, we would provide reassurance using grounding strategies with children who are like panicking, like deep breathing, distraction games, drawing. We will try to maintain normacy and structure, like organized group activities like storytelling, games, art projects to keep children occupied to provide a sense of routine. We will focus on student emotional needs, identify high need students quickly, circulate among classrooms and lunchrooms to check on students' emotional states, checking in with the most visibly distressed children, providing psychological first aid, and setting up safe, quiet places for those who need to step away. We will provide individual or small group support to students showing stress reactions like crying, withdrawal, and we will support communication, helping teachers and administrators explain information to children in developmentally appropriate ways so that students feel safe without being overwhelmed. Um, we will offer comfort to families to process their fears, reassure parents that their children are safe and cared for during the crisis, assist administrators in drafting sensitive messages for parents during the event. We will also collaborate with staff, share quick classroom activities like storytelling, mindfulness, that can distract students from fear and joining teachers in supervising activities and distractions while also circulating to identify students who need more individualized support. We will also coordinate crisis counseling resources. We'll work with incoming counselors from the district or community to organize psychological first aid. We will also create a system to track which students received immediate support and who might need a follow-up. We will check in with teachers and volunteers who may themselves feel anxious and offer strategies for managing their stress while caring for the students. How the counselor's role differs from the role of other stakeholders. Administrators are basically the decision makers who ensure safety, order, and coordination with outside agencies. Their primary focus is logistics, safety, and school operations. They will monitor weather updates, coordinate with district central office, police, Red Cross, and emergency management, decide on keeping students at school until buses, roads are safe, mobilize staff to supervise, feed, and entertain children, manage communication with parents like pickup procedures, organize transportation and traffic flow and reunification systems, ensure physical safety of the staff, students, buildings, and operations. While all school staff step up in times of crisis, the school counselor's role is unique. Their primary focus is emotional support, communication, and psychological well-being. Emotional first aid counselors are trained to identify trauma responses in children and provide individualized support that teachers or administrators may not have time or training to deliver. They use developmentally appropriate communication, like I mentioned, so that messages to children are explained in ways that reduce fear, and they also support and provide check-ins for staff who may be anxious while they're caring for their students. Counselors offer interventions, individual small groups, referrals, family sessions. They diffuse critical incidents, support families and parents, partner with outside counselors from the district, FEMA, Red Cross, to extend support, plan post-crisis interventions like group counseling, letters to parents on coping strategies. The similarities with school staff, like administrators, counselors communicate with families and provide reassurance to the school community. Like teachers and support staffs, counselors may supervise, entertain, or organize students during extended stays.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute myself. Now we're going to postventions, right? So after the flood has occurred, we want to make sure as school counselors that we're providing emotional debriefing and restoring normalcy, right? So like Jane mentioned before, we're going to ensure that we're providing individual check-ins, we're conducting small groups, and we're helping teachers and collaborating in classroom discussions to help normalize anxiety and fear and help build resilience. So how do we come back from this crisis, right? We're going to monitor at-risk students. So we're going to determine which students are exhibiting persistent stress. So maybe we're collaborating with teachers to see if teachers are noticing any students who may still be struggling even after the crisis has occurred, or maybe parents are reaching out or other school staff is noticing these. So we're going to plan ongoing frequent support, and maybe at that point we need to provide referrals to outside therapy as needed. We're going to support staff and families. We're going to offer resources and offer, again, like Jane mentioned, support with coping strategies. We're going to communicate with families on how to support students at home. And we're going to collaborate with community agencies, possibly even our parent liaison, to connect them to ongoing assistance after the flood. And that may be to resources that they may need at home to recover, as well as stuff that's related to how to help their student at school. We're going to participate in and attend debriefing discussions after the flood, and revision and improvement of future crisis plans. How the role differs. In the case of postventions, school administrators are going to be responsible for managing logistics after a crisis. So they're going to ensure that structures, buildings are safe and arrange relocation if necessary. So can we actually come back to the school? If not, maybe we have to go on distance learning or use another campus. They're going to be responsible for arranging those accommodations. They're going to maintain instructional consistency. So again, ensuring that students have access to materials. Do we need to go online? Do they need to have access to Chromebooks? What's going to happen in that situation? They're going to document and update crisis plans, and they're going to continue to coordinate and collaborate as well. For school counselors, we're going to assist in addressing the psychological impact of the crisis. We're going to assist with referrals to community resources for those affected by the flood. We're going to assist with family outreach, communication, and support. And we're really going to be the liaison between students, staff, parents with outside mental health services, ensuring that they're receiving that continuity of care.
For the second case study that our group discussed, for chapter 8, the case study revolves around the reactions of a school principal named Mrs. Valenti as she learns of an apartment fire that involved two of her students, with one of them unfortunately passing away in the fire. Mrs. Valenti must quickly make decisions to keep her students from further exposure to the horrific accident on their route to school, as enough time has passed where the buses could not be rerouted so that the students could stay home, as well as the parents already being at work. Valenti makes calls to her staff to maintain the school until she arrives, and she works with psychological professionals to assist with the surviving student as she copes with losing her sister.
Sorry, based on a case study from the book. Uh-oh. Based on a case study from the book, our collective opinion is that if psychological support is critical in managing and recovering from a traumatic event like fires. The detailed account of Rosalind's quick thinking and the importance of community and family involvement underscores the valid role of emotional and psychological resilience during emergencies. We believe that providing timely psychologist support can help individuals, especially children, cope with stress, fear, trauma, untimely contributing to the recovery process. The case highlights the importance of awareness, preparedness, and address not only physical safety but also mental health in crisis.
During the incident, our response will focus on providing safety, emotional support, and a sense of normalcy for the student and her peers. Specifically, we will support the student immediately, ensure she has a safe, quiet space at school, prepare teachers with strategies for working with a grieving, traumatized student, like maybe working with reduced workload, flexibility on assignments, provide trauma-informed counseling, and connect her family with outside grief and trauma specialists. Um, we will support other students, facilitate class discussions with teacher presence so students can process their fears and grief in a healthy way. We will identify higher risk students and create safe spaces. We will also correct misinformation and normalize children's emotional reactions like crying, fear, and we will encourage class projects like writing cards or drawing pictures to help the classmates feel like they're helping the student. Support the school community. We will communicate with families on resources on how to talk to their children about tragedy. We'll collaborate with administrators to adjust events that might be triggering. We will help organize long-term support such as grief groups or partnerships with outside mental health providers, and we'll partner with local fire departments and nonprofits for support. To support the staff and administrators, we will train teachers on trauma-informed practices, what to say, what to avoid, how to handle triggers, and staff debriefing that Vanessa will probably go more into. How the counselor's role differs from the role of other stakeholders during the incident is that the administrators will focus on safety and logistics, confirm that all affected students and families are physically safe. They're going to coordinate with fire officials and community agencies to arrange temporary housing resources. They will ensure affected students still have access to school, like transportation, meals, supplies. They will control school environment. They will try to keep the students indoors, coordinate staff, mobilize teachers and support staff, assign duties for supervision and parent communication. For communication, they will notify district officials, teachers, and staff about the situation. They'll communicate with the fire department, district leaders, follow the instructions from emergency responders. They'll be the ones that will handle media and reach out to families to communicate on available support services. They engage in decision making and they decide whether to continue classes, modify schedules, or implement emergency protocols. And they also oversee like the traffic management and crowd management, like I mentioned on the last chapter. They also allocate resources like ensure like supplies like water, first aid kits, and like say like quiet rooms are ready for students. Oh, sorry. And school counselors, they focus on maintaining calmness and being available. They monitor students and they provide immediate emotional check-ins with displaced students. They help students cope with separation anxiety from their homes, their belongings, maybe pets. They conduct crisis interventions, which whether it be individual or groups, they create a safe space in school for students to talk about their worries and offer short-term grief or trauma counseling. They also guide parents and staff on how to talk about tragedy with children and advocate for ongoing mental health resources. And they anticipate potential reminders and proactively adjust or provide extra support. Um, for school-wide support, they will help teachers reframe questions or fears like why did the fire happen to the firefighters are taking care of everything. They will educate classmates about compassion and confidentiality to prevent like rumors or gossip and facilitate peer support. The similarities with school staff is that they they ensure student safety. Administrators keep students indoors and physically safe, while the counselors ensure students are emotionally supported and monitored. For communication, administrators send logistical updates to staff and parents, and counselors translate information in child-friendly language and reassure students. And for collaboration with staff, administrators assign tasks where counselors guide teachers on calming techniques and responding to student fear.
Okay, and then again for this the fire for postventions, crisis support and interventions. Again, we're gonna help in classroom discussions after the crisis has occurred so we can normalize reactions to the fire and strengthen coping mechanisms. We're going to coordinate an return to school plan for Rosella and other students affected by the fire. We're going to collaborate with teachers to provide support in the classroom as well as help students identify trusted adults on campus that can help support them. So we want to make sure that students know that they can go to someone on campus that can help them if they're feeling overwhelmed. Follow-up and referrals, we're going to assess for students that continue to exhibit symptoms of trauma. And that's like in the last chapter, we're going to make sure that we collaborate with teachers and other stakeholders to identify students that are still having a difficult time even weeks after the fact. So maybe at that point, if frequent check-ins, we may need to adjust as needed, but if that's not working out, then maybe we need to refer to outside mental health services. We're going to provide caregiver and staff support. So again, like Jane mentioned, we're going to promote communication about how do we help with coping and resilience lessons, not only just in the classroom, but at home as well. And we're going to refer families to community agencies as needed. For debriefing, we're going to attend debriefing sessions. And again, I notice how I have italicized, we're going to participate. So by that is we're going to give our input as the school counselor. What are things that we see that worked in our role, right? And so what are things that didn't work? And that's kind of the feedback that we're going to provide in these sessions. We're going to collaborate with local first responders. So maybe we work with first responders on providing a fire safety workshop for students and families. Again, postvention, how does the role differentiate between school administrators and school counselors? They're going to be responsible again for managing logistics. After the crisis, do they need to continue to reroute buses? We're dealing maybe with street closures. Again, we're looking and assessing they're looking and assessing at the building safety. They're going to communicate and coordinate with first responders to continue to provide updates and even the media. Even maybe days, weeks after the event, we're going to ensure consultation and collaboration with, they're going to ensure, I'm sorry, consultation and collaboration with the district office to ensure that they're maintaining compliance documentation and they're implementing appropriate protocols. As school counselors, our role really is to provide post-crisis counseling to students, staff, and families. We want to continue to ensure that we're connecting them with mental health resources and community resources. And we're going to continue interventions with students and families who may require more time processing trauma. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Group one.
Can somebody share the slides?
Yes, I'm gonna go ahead and can you see it?
Yeah.
It's on?
Yeah. Yeah, with the notes. Oh.
Because I don't see it.
Click present, Anna.
I don't see it on my screen. Oh my god. Oh, there you go. Present.
Yeah, there you go.
It works now?
No.
No?
No, we can still see.
Like I'm hitting present, but nothing happens. I don't know.
The present and the purple button.
I think the same thing happened to you. How did you fix it?
Was this present full screen or presenter view?
Oh, go ahead, Anna. Instead of sharing Safari, I don't know if you're using it's share desktop. It's easier if you do it that way.
Where do I go for that?
So you're gonna have to stop sharing and then reshare the button on Zoom and click on the share desktop and then you'll go back in. It'll be easier.
Let's see, I don't know what. Now? I got it. I don't see I don't see my screen, so I don't know what's showing.
Ariana, let me see if I can try to do it.
I don't see my screen at all. Like I don't see. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. And then my neighbors are playing super loud music, and I'm like, oh. So what do I do? Is it working out? Or? Okay.
Yeah.
Now it works.
Yeah.
Without the notes, because I don't see anything.
Try to do it on my end too, and I can't.
Do you see it without the notes? I don't see my screen, so I don't know what it's showing.
Yeah, I don't see the notes.
Okay, so it's good?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
I can't see. I'm not. Sorry, hold on.
So it's not showing?
I can't see it on my end, but I can follow along.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I don't know about the rest of the class. Can you guys see it?
You have to you have present full screen, and then you at the very bottom you have to hit present in the purple section.
Okay, let me try again. Like I'm hitting it, but then I don't
Go lower where
So
it
you
says
go
present in
lower,
purple.
go down to where it says present.
The purple?
The
Yeah.
purple box. Purple box.
It's a have the how do I move this thing?
Right there, right there.
Oh, I see it now.
There you go.
Can you go back to the first slide?
So sorry. There you go.
Okay. Okay, so I start. So we had chapters 3 and 4, and our group was me, Leslie, Nancy, and Anna. And this is our case study reflections. You want to switch to the next page? Okay. So for chapter 3, hang on one second. I'm trying to make this. The case highlights a district that technically has a crisis response plan in place, but the lack of preparation and practice revealed critical flaws when an actual incident occurred. And although the crisis in question was not severe, it clearly exposed systematic weaknesses. There was an outdated and incomplete plan. The written plan had not been updated in years and did not reflect the current best practices. The roles and responsibilities were vaguely defined, leaving staff unsure of their duties. There was lack of training and practice. There was no cross training so that if one member was unavailable, another could step in. There was no active collaboration with the community mental health providers, the law enforcement, and emergency responders. And there was no debriefing sessions after both drills and real events to reflect, assess, and improve. And team members had never practiced implementing the plan together. And so without prior training, staff defaulted to doing whatever their instincts told them to do. And so there was inconsistent responses instead of coordinated action. So there was confusion in communication. And during the crisis, messages to staff, students, and families were delayed and inconsistent. There was no clear protocol that existed for who was responsible for communication with parents or the media. And there was weak community partnerships. Do I keep going? I forgot how far I go on this. Law enforcement and first responders had not been actively involved in developing or practicing the school's crisis plan. And as a result, coordination with outside agencies during the incident was clumsy and insufficient. And the district realized that a crisis plan is only as strong as the team's preparation and practice. Administrators acknowledged the need for regularly scheduled drills for various crisis types, such as lockdowns, evacuation, and medical emergencies, and that defined leadership hierarchy and decision making. So, key lessons from the case were that having a crisis manual or a binder is not enough, that plans must be living documents that are rehearsed and revised. And crisis readiness requires role, clarity, training, and practice to avoid confusion. And collaboration with community partners ensures smoother coordination when real emergencies arise. And schools must plan not only for the immediate response, but also for postvention, supporting staff, students, and families after a crisis to restore a sense of safety and normalcy.
Okay, so for our group opinion, we agreed that the case study reflected the importance of advanced crisis team preparation. So although there was staff members that were present during the crisis and they were willing to help, there was a lack of leadership and organization, which created a lot of confusion and wasted valuable time. And it also led staff to respond reactively rather than proactively. So in our opinion, crisis plans can be ineffective and unsuccessful if staff are not trained and a lack of confidence in their roles and responsibilities. And if they have a lack of confidence and in their roles and responsibilities during a crisis. So staff should be trained and prepared in advance of a crisis situation. The lack of practice and training can lead to chaos and panic as it occurred in this particular situation. So given that even trained staff sometimes can go into panic during a crisis situation, especially if there's like a medical emergency, it would be really helpful to also have like a backup plan in place to prepare for these types of situations in case somebody were to get really nervous or not know how to respond. And in relation to the school counselor's role, as school counselors, our role is unique in these situations, and it's important to understand both how it differs and how it can overlap with other school staff's roles. So as school counselors, our focus should be emotional and psychological needs of students and staff. So this would include like offering mental health support, post-crisis support, advocating for recovery plans, as well as referring students out and offering resources to students that are requiring additional support beyond what we can offer. Similar to other staff members, counselors must also follow established crisis protocols, prioritize safety, and work collaboratively with the crisis response team. Everyone should have an active role in keeping the situation under control. As for role differences, administrators are usually the ones that manage the logistics, such as assisting staff roles and responsibilities, enforcing procedures, and coordinating with law enforcement or emergency services. And they should also be the ones that lead most of the communication during and after the crisis. So if we were faced with a similar situation, my plan as a counselor would be to help everyone stay calm, provide reassurance to students and staff, and direct any bystanders away from the scene to reduce any panic, offer emotional support to those students or staff in need, and assist in communicating with paramedics or families. Finally, document any necessary information to follow up with any students or staff that may require additional support. So preparation and clarity in our roles is essential. Not only can this help improve the safety of our students and staff, but it also helps everyone feel more confident and supported during a crisis. So for postvention, following a crisis event, some immediate actions that school counselors can assist with include helping individuals cope by providing mental and emotional support, creating safe spaces where safe, I'm sorry, I lost my spot, where staff and students can process and share their thoughts and emotions, and they can also collaborate with schools' crisis teams to ensure accurate communication and debriefing on what worked and what also needs to improve with the current crisis plan. As for preventative actions, school counselors can advocate for the implementation of regular drills for all staff, including an orientation for substitutes with useful information to refer to during emergency situations. We would also advocate for all staff to receive ongoing training on emergency information and protocols and establish procedures. Also implementing the use of tools like the CALM checklist that could be helpful in helping staff like remember what steps to follow during a crisis situation in case they were to like blank out. The ultimate goal would be to foster a crisis-ready culture where everyone would feel prepared and supported during a crisis. And last but not least, we would also want to offer ongoing support through small groups and class sessions to help students with coping skills and emotional regulation. We would also want to monitor students for any long-term impacts or trauma responses, such as avoidance, anxiety, or absenteeism, while also collaborating with teachers to extend student support in the classrooms.
Okay, so the case study on chapter 4 is on crisis communications in schools, focusing on teachers' experience on September 11, 2001. This case study takes place during a new teacher's second week of teaching at a school near Washington, D.C. The principal entered his classroom unexpectedly in the middle of a math lesson to share some urgent news. The terrorist attacks of 9/11 had started. The teacher was asked if he had family working in New York or DC before being told that the Twin Towers and the Pentagon had been attacked. He was then instructed to remain calm and continue teaching as normally as possible. He had 27 students, aged 10. I don't see that. There's like... The principal emphasized that many students had parents working in federal jobs, the military, or related fields, meaning they could be directly affected. The teacher was instructed to not turn TV, radio, or other media inside the classroom to avoid panic and misinformation. The main goal was to keep students safe, calm, and engaged in learning, even while the world outside was in chaos. The teacher was asked to trust that any important updates will be delivered directly by the administration in person or via email. The teacher did as instructed and continued teaching despite his own fears and worries. Families started pulling students out early as the day went on. After recess and lunch, there were 18 students left. The other students started asking why so many students were leaving early. The teacher continued having a normal day with hands-on activities for his students. The teacher reviews district crisis communication plan for guidance, anticipating possible scenarios. Oh my God. Staff checked in with one another, and the principal held a short staff meeting at the end of the day to thank teachers for their professionalism. The superintendent announced school will be closed for 3 days. Leadership focused on keeping the school community steady and caring for staff and students during the crisis. This case study highlights important lessons: the importance of calm, clear leadership in moments of uncertainty, the need to prioritize students' emotional safety as well as physical safety, careful control of communication to limit panic and misinformation, supporting staff so they can stay strong for students. We thought this case, regarding our group personal opinion of this case study is a powerful reminder of how deeply schools are impacted by during national or community crisis. The principal's calm leadership stood out, providing clear communication, stability, and protection for students. Leadership in crisis is not just about managing information, but reducing fear and keeping children safe. We admire the teacher's honesty about feeling overwhelmed in their first teaching role. Despite his young age and inexperience, he showed leadership skills by taking initiative in reviewing the school's emergency plan. His compassion in thinking about students' innocence and how to answer difficult questions shows care and awareness. Some weaknesses we saw in the case was the lack of mental health response for students and staff. There was also a heavy dependence on the principal's leadership, and there's no evidence of larger crisis team, shared leadership, or clear delegation to other staff. There was no clear communication with families who started pulling students out early. The case does not describe how the school communicated with parents. The case ends with schools being closed for 2 days, but there's no detail about the recovery phase. This case shows how schools are deeply connected to community crisis. We admire how the principal balanced facts and reassurance. Limited media may feel restricted, but it prevented panic, allowing students to have a normal day in school. This serves as a reminder that schools must carefully choose what to share with students. This case study reminds us that in a crisis, leadership and communication determine whether chaos grows or calm prevails. As educators, we may not control outside events, but we can create a sense of safety and stability for our students. Thus, the essence of crisis communications in schools. When it comes to preparedness, crisis communication plans provide structure in chaos. In addition, teachers need training and reassurance to feel supported. We believe this case study illustrates the importance of preparation. Without a crisis communication plan, teachers could easily feel lost or panic. Having clear codes and protocols helps them feel supported and in unpredictable situations such as 9/11. A major takeaway that we got from this case study is that effective crisis communication requires calm leadership, calm protocols, and a focus on protecting children's safety and emotions.
The students went home not knowing what happened. The teachers and staff were able to keep calm and keep the children calm until they went home. But on them coming back and reflecting on what the counselor should do in the situation, they should provide emotional support for both the teachers and students. To help the teachers gather their emotions or to help the students process their emotions, a counselor should step into the classroom and assist. During this time, counselors can guide teachers with age-appropriate communication to avoid any panicking in the classroom and monitor the students' reactions in case they need extra support. For the administrator side, they would need to deliver official communication to staff, students, and families, and confirm all the communication is facts. They need to coordinate with the district leaders, law enforcement, and possible media. Both counselors and administrators need to maintain calm and provide reassurance to families and staff. They need to ensure that what they communicate is accurate and in a timely manner. Don't wait too long and have others come up with their own stories, which could cause panic. Make sure they participate in crisis team decisions and help the team resolve crisis, but above all, prioritize the well-being and safety of the students. As a future counselor, I will prepare myself by regularly reviewing our school crisis communication plan and remain calm when a crisis occurs. Reflect on the importance of postvention and come up with strategies to have after a crisis occurs. Provide clear, age-appropriate communication with emotional support. Know that in situations like this, attendance might be affected and provide support on helping them come back to school. Support teachers with their students and their emotions without causing panic in the classroom while students are in school. And when they come back to school, be sensitive because we don't know if their family was when that was affected. Grounding and reassurance, not only to staff and students, but also for for myself and remind myself that I am not alone, and we will get through this and can rely on the crisis team. Assist our administration in preparing factual messages to communicate and help with translation when necessary. Social media wasn't an issue then, but in these days, try to speak to students and tell them not to believe everything they see on social media. Create safe spaces and communicate with people currently in those spaces that their rooms were identified as a safe space, such as a library, wellness center, or counseling offices. There might be a lot of students who were impacted by this tragedy, and we might need bigger spaces. Also, check-ins with students who are high-risk students, as in those with family in the affected areas. Postvention. Students should be provided grief counseling and safe spaces to process emotions. This could be achieved by facilitating classroom discussions and or small group counseling and to teach them coping strategies. Provide the students with outside resources and outside mental health services. Facilitate staff debriefing and support teachers' well-being. Will provide staff sessions to help teachers process their emotions because they might have been affected too, and their families. Share accurate resources with families to prevent misinformation and help them to be able to help them talk to their children. Monitor long-term impacts such as anniversaries, triggers, and on days we have drills, which could be a trigger to certain students, especially with the media replaying the graphic images on the news. And to end, continue school-wide SEL lessons on coping with crisis.
All right, thank you, everyone. A little bit of feedback. So you guys took this as like a whole picture, and I actually think I wanted you for each case study. Okay, the case happened, and then the crisis starts, and then it either starts at the event itself, and then what do you do in the moment? What do you do the day after? What do you do 3 weeks after, and so on? So, and a lot of you guys just kind of gave a big, basic overview, but each of the case studies was for you to kind of like put yourself in the situation, such as the natural disaster. Okay, you want to think of that as like it's Katrina and we're at school. You know what I mean? So, like, if it's Katrina and we're at school, what do we do? So, like, the floods happen everywhere. So, we're there, and then how well they implemented their crisis team in the midst of that flood. Then, next, what happens next? How do we dismiss the kids? How do we do this? How do we make the connections? How do we communicate to the parents? And that's what you're kind of peeling apart if it was mentioned in your, because not all the case studies mentioned how effective that it was, or, and those are the things that you wanted to kind of put into play. Then after that, it's just like the last one, it said, we're closed for 3 days. So your postvention becomes when you return. What are we doing? How are we keeping the kids safe? How are we communicating to the parents? How are we doing all these things? And our role as a counselor, all of you guys hit the target when you said all of the things that you would do as a school counselor, all of the SEL lessons, the coping strategies, and all of that. But how would you do that? Would you formulate a team? Would you bring in extra counselors? Would you do this? Would you do that? How many schools were affected? How many of this? Just those are all the things that you wanted to bring into this situation. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Was that all specified in the rubric though? Because I feel like we've been following like the rubric for a lot of our assignments. So I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
I mean, but you guys did it said a PowerPoint presentation, and then you're just kind of taking the case study. A case study is that it's like, okay, what here's a overview of what would you do, kind of, and they can't give you everything in a case study. So there is no right or wrong answers. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that because all of you guys hit the mark with like, okay, we would do groups, we would do groups, we would do this, we would do coping strategies, we would provide support, we would refer out, we would do all of those things, and all of those are correct answers. But in what order and in what fashion? How many weeks? How are we going out? Because as a counselor, every day you're going back to work. Every day you're going back to work. So do you know what you're doing that day when you get there? Do you know who's going to be there to help you? Do you know what's happening? I mean, I wanted you guys to kind of think of like, I'm sitting in this situation and what do I do? Um, like for instance, when the one with the fire and the death, we didn't announce how we were going to share with the staff, and that's the administrator's role, right? The goes up and does the announcement. Immediately, the counselor comes in and supports, right? So I just wanted you guys to think of it in those terms, not globally, because yes, we have a crisis team, but we play a role on that team. And that's what we needed. I needed you guys to kind of address like what happens from that moment that it happened and you're informed of it all the way to like it's 3 weeks out, it's a month later, and we might still need support depending on how tragic the situation was, right? Because we might be at month 2 or 3 and we're still providing support, but then what happens? So I just want you guys to think about that, and with your case studies. In the future, because when a crisis happens, it starts at that moment that it happens, right? So the principal gets the information, she hits the team, just like that. You are a team member. So then what happens? Okay, now I'm coming into work. What am I going to face? We've got to announce there was a death. The roads are still blocked off. There's a fire. We've got to have a way to get the kids in for safety, away from that road. So are we going to egress? How are we going to ingress and egress? So all of those things should be mentioned, and then we move forward from there, in the timeline of it all. And then we kind of go after it ends, after that day, we're past day one. Now we start to go, okay, now we're looking at the weeks ahead or the 2 days ahead. Okay, now this is how we're going to continue to support. This is how they're going to continue. And like you said, a lot of those things, and the reason why they wanted you to focus on your role versus the administrator role is you're not the one contacting the media. You're not the one writing the letters to the parents and all of that. You'll probably be in the meeting as she says, okay, this is what I'm sending out. This is how, to know that the communication, and then you're also adding those factors like, okay, let's provide this resource for our parents who are struggling at home. Let's provide this resource. Maybe you're adding that as the team member. Natasha, you had a question?
I think when we had met last week, I kind of wish we could have went more in depth because now we all looking at you like deer in headlights, like, oh my God, we didn't add this or that. Because I think when we're used to doing presentations, we just, so I think well, I wished we could have had that kind of more information because now we're all sitting here going, oh my God, where did I mess up at? Because it's like it make it seem like we missed like a big chunk of something. I mean,
Tasha, that's your perfection, wanting that A. That's not what I'm talking about right now. I am talking
okay.
about real
I'm
life, lady. I'm
I'm
talking
sorry,
about
but
what
I'm just sitting
happens
there
when it
going,
happens,
I
okay?
bet you I'm not the only
My
person thinking
job
it
is not
though.
about that A, okay? My job is to teach you when you become a counselor, what are you prepared, okay? That paper that you wrote you gave me all that pretty stuff and all that's right, okay? Well, what is the truth, okay? That's my job. Okay. I'm gonna be
I
honest with
got you.
you.
I'm just saying, if you look at everybody's face,
I
I'm
know,
sure I'm not the only one. Because everybody got
I
this
hear
look
you.
on their face like,
But you're looking at your grade, your GPA, and did I write that paper right? And did I do that? No. Okay, I'm telling you what you need to know when it's really happening. Okay.
I'm sorry,
And
thank you.
you are in charge, okay? And you are the one guiding it. You've got to get, yourself together too, right? What if it is like I told you in my situation where the counselor was in charge and he was the best friend of the person who died? So who was supporting him? He was in charge. You understand what I'm saying? That's reality. Okay, Rebecca?
I agree. I think that's really important to think through those steps in the actual like process. Um, it wasn't laid out that way, so maybe that's really good feedback for the program and how this assignment is designed, because I don't think it has to be the grade or the actual practical application of what we're learning. I think it can be both. And the way that the assignment was structured didn't lead us to where the expectations are. And I agree, like if we had thought about this and been guided to what you're saying, that would have been very valuable. And I think, I don't know if that feedback comes from us or from you, but maybe that would be really good. And also, a model is always really helpful. So, um, in the future, if the program can include models for that, so that when we see that same prompt and then we understand what the expectations are, and then we can go through that process of application in that way.
Yeah, yeah. So I will definitely put that on there because it didn't come out exactly like the case studies didn't come out exactly. But like I said, you guys covered a lot of great information and accurate information. So I mean, as far as like me saying, oh, you're off the mark, that's not true. What I was just saying is just the layout of it all, just because the crisis itself is when that parent, the principal gets that information and you are triggered on that tree. And that's when it starts, and then how we're going to lay it out. And then we kind of go from that day. Once we get past that day, then we figure out what we're going to do for the remainder of the week. And then we kind of, depending on how everything looks at the end of a week or after 7 days or after so many days in school, if we're even in school. Like I noticed someone put on there with one of them, it was about closing the school. So we might need to go to virtual. That was excellent. Like that's an excellent comment in that one because that's a true statement. What if the principal starts to think about we're going virtual now? And so that changes everything. So how will we continue to support those families virtually? So again, you guys hit the mark as far as different things that could potentially happen and how school could change drastically after that incident, right? And then moving forward, And like I said, all of the information you gave was accurate, like the SEL lessons, the principles. But I do just want you to think of timelines in the future, just timelines like, okay, this happened, I got to go to school and and this is what I'm facing, right? And then how long will my students be affected, and when can I start peeling back a little bit of support and going to, like, I might be supporting large masses, so I need a whole team. And then I get down to, okay, everybody seems to be coping well. And so now I'm down to the small numbers. And then many of you guys mentioned this, referring out, because that was a major trigger because something else has happened in their life. So they're having a difficult time and it's 6 weeks later. So that's my referral. So all of you guys had the right answers. I don't want you to think that I'm going to tear up your PowerPoints and say these aren't accurate. I'm just letting you know, like, just like the timelines, just so you know how that goes. Okay. Just so you kind of visualize it, because that's actually how, it'll happen. It'll happen in that way. You'll get a phone call and it's somebody committed suicide. We lost a teacher last night. We lost a student last night. And then automatically you have to jump into action, and as a member on the crisis team, not as a person in charge. And you guys clearly defined the administrator's roles versus yours, which is great because that's important because you're not going to be the media person, but you might be the person who reconnects families, right? For various reasons, so if that's your role, then you would, that's gonna take some finessing as well. Okay. So again, not that your activity or your PowerPoints were incorrect or not, but just thinking about it realistically, like how it rolls itself out and what your roles are as a counselor and what you'll be facing. Okay. All right, everyone, you have your final assignment, which is due week 8. And we kind of started it a little bit during week 5, and you presented to me and we talked a little bit about that already. So now you're writing the paper that goes along with that. And you've already met some of the standards for the rubric with the presentation on that and asking the questions and trying to figure out how to the plan works, the district plan that you chose. Okay. All right. So you have one last assignment, and remember that assignment is also due on Wednesday. So instead of our normal, and I don't think you have, let me just double check before I say anything. I don't think there's no discussion board, correct? That last week. I think some classes have it on that last week, and I dislike that so much. You do not. You do not have a discussion board on your last week, which is great because that always kind of throws everybody off with everything being due and responding on that same Friday. Okay. So just your evaluation of your school crisis response plan. Again, giving that feedback, giving that information that I gave today, how often, like, you write the plan, are you involved in it? Are the counselors involved in it? Do people know about it? Do they know where it is? So already, here's some great, material. Like if a crisis happened tomorrow, would your school where you're looking at this plan know what to do? And that's food for thought. So that should be able to help you write your paper, right? Again, no right or wrong answers here. There are just, we have information, and are we just doing it, like putting a crisis plan together and no one knows what it is? That was on one of the case studies. Like we have a binder, it's all in there, it's all nice and pretty and it's written, but nobody knows where it is, right? So that's another thing. And that's what you could write as you're reviewing your own and you looking at that specific, crisis plan and that district and that school and all of that, right? So I hope I'm giving you lots to think about. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure meeting you all, and I hope to see you again in another course. I look forward to teaching you again, and good luck, and I wish you the best. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you
night.
so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.